Imagine your land, your language, your identity, stripped away in the name of civilization. Africa, the cradle of humanity, once rich in kingdoms, culture, and trade, was carved up like a pie by foreign powers, without a single African voice in the room. European empires didn't just bring railroads and flags, they brought brutality, theft, slavery, and destruction that still echoes today. But how did it all begin? Why was Africa targeted so viciously? And what did colonization really cost? This is the dark history of colonization in Africa, unfiltered, uncensored, and unforgettable. The Scramble for Africa, a continent carved by greed in the late 1800s, European powers didn't see Africa as a land of people, cultures, and civilizations, they saw it as a treasure chest. Gold, diamonds, rubber, oil, resources that could make empires rich. At the infamous Berlin Conference of 1884, European leaders, without a single African present, drew borders on a map and divided the continent like it was a board game. Britain took the east and south, France grabbed the west, Belgium snatched the Congo, and others followed. No consent? No negotiations. Just colonial conquest in the name of profit. This scramble for Africa wasn't about helping Africans, it was about exploiting them. What followed was decades of violence, slavery, forced labor, and cultural destruction. And the worst part? The damage didn't stop when the flags came down. Africa still lives with the scars. Brutality in the Congo, the forgotten genocide. One of the darkest chapters of African colonization unfolded in the Congo Free State, under the control of King Leopold II of Belgium. But don't be fooled by the word free. The Congo was anything but. Between 1885 and 1908, Leopold turned the Congo into his personal slave camp. His soldiers forced millions of Congolese to extract rubber and ivory, cutting off the hands of those who didn't meet quotas, murdering entire villages, and using terror as control. Historians estimate that over 10 million people died during this time. Let that sink in, 10 million lives lost, equal to the Holocaust, but rarely talked about. This wasn't colonization. It was systematic, industrial-scale cruelty, and it was driven by European greed, hidden behind a mask of civilization. Cultural erasure, destroying identities, languages, and beliefs. Colonization wasn't just about stealing land and resources, it was about erasing entire cultures. Across Africa, European colonizers imposed their own languages, religions, and systems, branding indigenous beliefs as savage and traditional practices as primitive. African history was rewritten. Local stories were silenced. Spiritual systems were demonized. Children were forced into missionary schools where they were beaten for speaking their native tongue. Generations grew up believing their own heritage was inferior. Languages like Igbo, Zulu, Swahili, and Berber were pushed to the margins, while French, English, and Portuguese became the standard. Colonizers didn't just conquer bodies, they conquered minds. This deep cultural trauma still impacts African identity today, as many people struggle to reclaim what was taken from them, not just land, but legacy. Divide and rule, planting the seeds of future conflict to maintain control. Colonizers didn't just exploit African people, they turned them against each other. European powers used a brutal strategy called divide and rule. They elevated certain tribes, ethnic groups, or leaders over others, offering them privileges, weapons, and positions of power. This created deep ethnic divisions, resentment, and mistrust, tensions that didn't exist before colonial rule. In places like Rwanda, the Belgians classified people by ethnic identity, labeling Hutus and Tutsis based on superficial traits. This manipulation directly fed into the 1994 genocide, where nearly 1 million people were slaughtered in just 100 days. Colonial borders also ignored ancient tribal lands and lumped together rival groups, forcing them into artificial nations. The result? Civil wars, coups, and chaos that plague Africa to this day. So while colonizers left physically, they left behind a ticking time bomb: division, distrust, and disorder. Economic exploitation, rich lands, poor people. Africa is one of the richest continents in the world when it comes to natural resources: gold, diamonds, oil, copper, uranium, and fertile land. But under colonial rule, those riches didn't benefit Africans. Colonial powers built railroads, ports, and roads, not for development, but for extraction. Raw materials were shipped straight to Europe, where they fueled industrial revolutions, booming economies, and global empires. Meanwhile, African workers were paid almost nothing, or worse, enslaved. Profits flowed out of Africa, while poverty stayed behind. To this day, many African economies are still based on exporting raw materials with little control over pricing or production, another legacy of colonial systems. It wasn't just theft, it was economic sabotage disguised as progress. Colonization didn't just change Africa, it shattered it. From stolen land and looted wealth to broken cultures and engineered conflicts, the legacy of colonialism still casts a long, painful shadow over the continent. It's not just history, it's a wound that's still healing. And while Africa rises with resilience, innovation, and strength, the truth about what happened must never be forgotten, or whitewashed. Understanding the dark past is the first step to building a brighter future. If this video opened your eyes, don't let the story stop here. Like this video to help it reach more people. Comment below, what shocked you the most about Africa's colonization? Share this with someone who still believes colonization was civilizing. And subscribe for more untold history, truth, and knowledge, because the past still shapes the present.